mm, mm, mhm, mhm, mhm.
The reason they have them is to reduce wars, right? It's to make it so that there's some skin in the game for the leaders and the people making decisions, right?
Yeah, but again, your logic doesn't quite hold because getting rid of Glenn Greenwald and Hinkle or whatever, in if anything, that would shore up American resolve and intensify the conflict, perhaps. I mean, you can
Do,
make
do
an
you think it?
argument.
Do you think it would though? If like
Of
if
Israel in
Glenn
its current
Greenwald were to
political
drop dead
situation. So
tomorrow,
I guess the
Yeah,
thing you
right?
start
Like
off
his
with is the
boyfriend
current
or whatever
hubbub, the
husband just
yes.
protests,
recently died,
and the judicial
Allah forbid
reform.
this to
right?
happen. But
Like
For
yes,
like
I
people that
if
aren't
some
understand.
familiar with Israeli politics, what is the issue? Like, what are the factions? What is really the issue? Why is it so contentious? Uh, so on and so forth.
My wife will get into the weeds, but basically, this is a story about demographics, and this is a story about the religious taking over the country. I hand it to you.
Okay, so you framed it like this. I don't think that's the only story about religious are taking over. It is what's happening. But like to go into this reform, I would say that the story is that you have a parliament in Israel, and that's like one authority, and they're supposed to legislate rules, and then you have the government. The government's supposed to perform and enforce these laws and rules, and then you have the legal system. That's like the head of the legal system is the Supreme Court, and along, I would say, the last 20 to 30 years, actually, what happened is that the Supreme Court took upon themselves to be the main force. And it started with like, I won't go in too much into details, but it started like 30 years ago. They legislated two, let's call them supreme laws. And then they said, by the power of these laws, we can cancel any other law that the parliament members are legislating. These two laws looked very innocent at the time, and they were voted in not in a big majority, like in a minority. It's just like the parliament was empty because nobody thought these laws mean anything. One of them was number one was like the honor of a man and its freedom. Like who wouldn't like to vote for that one? Everybody wants to get honored and freedom. And the second one was freedom of occupation, which again goes along with democracies. Like everybody can do whatever they want. So they seem two innocent laws. And then by the power giving to them from these two laws, because we do not have a constitution in Israel. Am I clear? Do you want to like me to clarify?
Yeah, but just move it along. Just
So we don't have a constitution. So in the power of these two laws, they started like disqualifying and canceling other laws. And it came to a situation where the last word about everything was not the government, it was the Supreme Court. So far, it's okay?
Yeah.
Do you want an example to make
Yeah,
it more?
an example would be good. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about example that's interesting to you about our people that are coming from other countries and like immigration. We don't have like a great immigration policies. So like let's say that 10 years ago, lots of Africans from Eritrea started to come into our country, and we were like overwhelmed. We don't know what to do with them. They ship them over to Tel Aviv. They give them like this option to work, and we don't. How do you say legaresh? How do you say that? We don't tell them to go to another country. We don't expel them. Yeah, that's
yeah.
So the Supreme Court comes about and says in three laws, like really limits the option of the government. The first thing the government did is they built a fence, which stopped the stream of Africans coming in, but already you're stuck in like 50,000 that are in and making kids every day. So the government of Israel came to an agreement with the government of Uganda that we can ship them over to Uganda and give Uganda some incentives in order to take them. And it passed the government in a vast majority. There comes the Supreme Court and says, no, we've checked Uganda. That's not decent enough, and we cancel that.
You see how racist we are, Norvin?
Oh yeah, no, that's messed up. You're trying to get these people, out to someplace that definitely would be preferable for them, and then no, that's wait. So like, is that like what we would think of as the left wing opposing that, or is that a religious thing?
Right. There's no. It's leftist. Of course, not the religious people, not the Orthodox. It's leftist organizations with like human rights that have like gigantic budgets. Most of the budgets are coming from donations from like states like Germany, Norway, Scandinavian countries, whatever. They have like these gigantic budgets, so they appeal to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court can always trust them to appeal on all these, let's call them human rights matters, right? So because the Supreme Court can't just like be involved. It can't just say, hi, today I'm discussing your law. It needs somebody to appeal that law in order for the Supreme Court to discuss it, but they can trust these people. They always appeal.
We have left-wing Jews here that give us a problem the same way they're giving you guys a problem, but we know how to deal with them.
Right. So that's like one example from immigration field. So I gave one example of how, but there's many examples like from security matters. For example, we used to like go with the helicopter and drop bombs on specific human beings, terrorists that we want them to stop leading Hamas or whatever. These human rights organization appeal to the Supreme Court and they go, that's not okay because sometimes, there's like a peripheral damage. You're killing a neighbor or whatever. So we no longer can like bomb these individuals from the air because we're hurting the human rights of their neighbors. Do you get the angle?
Right. I know it's the same kind of stuff that happens in Western countries as a general rule.
Right. So,
but here we're successful.
Right. So Israelis were kind of like being overwhelmed already because it doesn't matter if you're choosing a right-wing nationalist government or a leftist government, you're always getting the same policies because the hands of the right-wing government are tied by the Supreme Court. So I think for the first time in many, many years or ever, we got a coalition this time around of a government that's like really a nationalist right-wingers with a coalition with Orthodox religions. Like it's all right-wingers, supposedly. So this time around, the legal minister decided, all right, so that's about time that we have this majority to pass this reform. What is this? This is okay? We're okay?
Yeah.
All right, so this reform had like 3 legs. One leg was to change the committee of how you choose judges. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I'm just going to tell you the judges were choosing themselves, which means the DNA of judges always remained the same. The Supreme Court, the head of the Supreme Court once said, this is a family here, like the Godfather. We're choosing people that are like us, that have the same values.
It was the left-wing Jews that started the country.
Right. So you used to get, and you still do, you never get like a conservative judge. And not because they're not getting elected, you can't even find them. Last government, we had to go all the way to America to find a Jew that did all of his education over there, and we had to bring him back here in order to have a conservative judge. Like Israel doesn't even raise conservative judges in the system. By the time they become judges, the system's already like, trained them to what's right and what's wrong. So the leftists were very frustrated from this right-wing government, and they're looking for a good excuse to start to rally again and to start all the demonstration. And that government was like, they gave them a good reason right on the right month. They did like this press conference. Here we go. We're going to do this reform. So the last power. Here, I'm going to end it with one sentence. Leftists understood that they can never win this in a democratic way. They can't win elections. So they were holding on to this power power center, which is the Supreme Court. That means you can like lose in elections but still rule. So once they saw that we're going on the Supreme Court's head this time around, these rallies started breaking out. Now you ask me whatever you want to know.
Yeah, no,
Good job.
it's very similar to the situation in the U.S. So our relationship to our Supreme Court, though, has recently changed. Historically, leftists in America have supported the Supreme Court because it pretty much always ruled in their favor. But recently, the reversal of Roe v. Wade, now there are leftists actually calling to abolish the Supreme Court, which I'm perfectly happy with because I just object to the whole concept. But no, it seems like it is very parallel, the issues with the Supreme Court, that it basically is just this totally non-democratic group of people that sit on a bench and interpret law however the hell they want.
That's another thing. Yes, it doesn't matter how you write the law. They get this free interpretation.
Yeah, but
So-
it's different from America because here it's been radically left the whole time.
The whole time.
Like in America, you can get representation on both sides,
Right.
on how you guys choose the Supreme Court.
They're so radical that I'll give you an example. Most of high-tech companies, they don't run their legal business in Israel. In their contract, they're writing that in ever legal matter, they will conduct it in the U.S. or in some sort of European countries because they know if they'll go into this Supreme Court, they would, or any court in Israel, not just the Supreme Court, for that matter. It's going to take years, and the way that the judges will interpret what was written in the agreement is like insane. It has nothing to do with the written words.
No, it never does.
And you guys have a constitution. We don't have that.
Right.
Yeah, no, the Bill of Rights has saved us many, many, many times. We are very lucky for that. I'm not a big fan of the Enlightenment ideals that America was founded on, but thankfully, ironically, the Bill of Rights kind of walked some of that back, so we did not wind up with it getting as bad as it could have. Is there anything else you feel is pertinent to that, like that issue specifically? I guess, how do you think it'll resolve? Like, how bad are the protests? Like, I watched a video the other day. I don't know who it was because I'm not familiar with their politicians, but I guess some prominent figure in Israel was even like throwing around the phrase civil war. Like, is it really that bad, or is that just hyperbole for the media?
No, it went pretty bad. It went pretty bad. I'll tell you what happened.
The left wing is losing their country, and
Right.
they feel it.
Right. And they are going to...
And they, to this day, they are like the army, they are the economy.
It's even worse. Like what they did, how they made it stop. The legislation stopped right now. You do know that, right? Right now, the protest made the legislation stop. The committee stopped assembling, and they took representations from each party, and they said, let's go to the president house and discuss it for days and days and days, meaning like it's going nowhere. So, yeah, filibuster. So,
But the protests go on because the problem still persists, that they've lost power.
right. But what happened is they threatened with the army. The crisis that made it all stop was that the defense minister threatened our prime minister, and they're both from the same party, the same right party, that he's going to resign if the reform is not going to stop because he got a report from the army. I don't know if you know how the Israeli army is built, but we're counting a lot on the reserves. Reserves means like you've done your 3 years of service and now you're doing a month a year. But pilots are doing a day a week. And pilots are like the main force in Israel, like they're the head of the whole thing. So these pilots are usually leftists, and they were very much active in these protests. And they're coming once a week to train. And right now, they're training for supposedly attack Iran, whatever there is. And they threaten that they're not going to come to the army anymore. So that threat was loud and clear. Amongst other threats, like they're taking their money out of Israel from investments, high-tech companies. They have a lot of power. And the prime minister understood that threat and stopped the reform.
But these threats, if they carry it through, it's only going to hurt them because they're more focused in like their standards of living, and so they'll leave the country if it gets too if the standards go too low, and all the right wing will stay because they're poor to begin with.
Yeah, no, it's similar in America. Similar dynamic. the left, pretty much across the whole Western world, is very cosmopolitan and very prone to moving around.
And secular.
Yes, very
And
secular.
degenerate.
And degenerate. Yes. So the other issue that I've heard quite a lot of contention about is the situation with the ultra-Orthodox in Israel. Now, my understanding, and obviously I'm not an expert on your politics, is the ultra-Orthodox have a very high fertility rate, which is to be expected for a religious group, that they're exempt from the mandatory military service of every other citizen, and that they get some kind of stipend, and that this is becoming a contentious issue, not only with leftist Jews, but even like secular right-wing Israelis, the kind of the privileges of the ultra-Orthodox. And like, I've also seen clips of like the Orthodox Jews protesting in the street. I don't even know what they're protesting, like getting hosed. So like, what is the situation on the ground with the ultra-Orthodox, and what is the average Israeli citizen's attitude towards them?
You want this?
No, go ahead.
I'll take this. Whatever you want. Okay, so when Israel is founded, 1940.
By the way, I give everything to you. She was born in Israel and she knows her stuff.
So in 1948, there was a group of Orthodox that went to study in a yeshiva, which means like they're studying the Torah all day long. And they asked from the prime minister back then, which was David Ben-Gurion, that founded the government, a way not to go to the army. And he thought, we have enough soldiers, we're doing well, we need somebody to sit down and study Torah, like to save the traditions, a group of people. But that group today is gigantic. I think predictions are by the end of, I think, 2030, we're talking about 20% of the population. And what's more concerning is that there 50% of all the kids going to school are Orthodox.
Yeah, we're not talking about a high birth rate. We're talking about extremely high birth rates.
Right. Like 7 years from now, when you're looking at first grade, like the 6-year-olds, you're looking at 50% of all of 6-year-olds in Israel being Orthodox. So they don't go to the army. There's still a majority of them, I would say 98% of them do not go to the army. Some of them decide to go in special programs and volunteer and go to the army. That's one issue.
By the way, this is not a case of another people taking over. Everybody that are secular, there's 2 or 3 generations away from being from these type of people.
Right.
So they came from these families and they left. It's not like another invading people are taking over.
Right.
Right.
So that's like one issue. The other issue is they run an independent education system, which does not include math, English, or any other things that like biology, physics, whatever, science, history. They're studying their own program, which is basically the Bible and Torah and Gemara and, stuff like that. So there's one issue is that the public wants them. As a result from what they're going to school with, they can't do much in the modern world with what they went to school with. So they're getting a budget. They're getting a government budget to sit down and study for the rest of their lives. But their wives are working. They're living in poverty. And now the government is like, okay, so we want you. It's the government's aspiration. It's for the benefit of all of Israel, for them to combine in the world and work and be productive. So right now they're not very much productive in contributing to the economy of themselves or Israel. So there's like two struggles. One was like, do you want to get these budgets? We want you to start putting in your schools math and English and science and things that will help you to combine in the academia and find in the postmodern world a way to combine yourself in these jobs. And the other fight is get yourself drafted to the army, which they refuse to. A lot of right-wingers are also, this is not a left or right, like most of secular people in Israel are feeling that it's going to come to this point, you can't carry them anymore. You can't carry them as far as it goes for the army, and you can't carry them like economic-wise.
By the way, God help us all if the Orthodox decide to join the army. They're really an aggressive people. I've gotten beat up by a group of them.
Yeah. So
I
how it's
don't
gonna
doubt
be?
that. I've heard stories about in America, New York, and New Jersey, like Curious Joel, those areas. Yeah.
So there's like voices that are going, okay, so let's do a professional army, like in the U.S. And there's other voices that are saying you can't do a professional army. You have to. The army is very secular in Israel, and they're afraid that if they're going to send their boys to the army, these boys are going to like stray off the way and find themselves with like combined service with women, and I don't know how kosher the food is in many situations. So they have a point. The army didn't want them for many many years. Like it's mostly like the public's like take them to the army, take them to the army, and the army like, no, we're doing well, stay out. But it came to this boiling point that decisions are going to be made this way
Yeah,
or
it's like
that.
watch what you wish for, because once they enter, that's it for women in the army. That's it for all the secular values. That's it for all the like. Let's be nice to the Arabs when we invade their towns.
Right. They know it. Once they're joining the army, it's going to change the whole character of the army. Like the army would rather draft girls, 18-year-old girls, to like very hard, tough jobs than to take an Orthodox young man to join the army. So the demonstrations that you're watching is every time that the law about drafting these guys comes about, they're coming out and they're starting to demonstrate. This government was very sweet to them. We just transferred in this last budget a big old budget to them without obligating them to put math, science, or whatever in their programs and postponing the law of drafting them, like rolling it forward.
But I think from this point forward, the boat's basically sailed. Like they're not going to be able to apply any pressure on this group anymore.
For the last,
They're in
for the-
charge.
right. This government, it's done. It's over with for the next.
And we're talking
2
about
years.
just the last 2 years. Like
It took-
up until that point, they had a chance to implement these things, but that's it. It's just going to get worse and worse. They're just going to become more and more powerful because they continue to have children at this rate. So
Yeah, like what does that bode for your future? Because I mean, what percentage of them like become more secular and participate? What percentage of them just continue with the ultra orthodox? Like, you can't have a country of just the ultra orthodox. So, like, is that?
yeah, we can.
Yeah, you can. It's going to be a different country, but you can. They're becoming more and more involved. The politicians and the professional people over there are becoming more and more involved. And you can't say that they're all like poor and stupid. Stupid, they're not. It's a different type of education. It's very.
They're not stupid?
No.
Okay.
I've heard about like some of them, like let's say like 5% of them, if they want to combine in high tech, they're like, okay, so I want to go into high tech. Boom, they're in high tech, and they, everything that they missed through the years, they're just like picking up in no time. The brain that's studied the Torah and the Gomorrah and whatever for all these years, it's like a sponge brain. They're like,
There's some smart people in the Orthodox, but most of them are not those people.
most of them are not, but there's a group of people that can combine and take things forward. Most of secular people are not so smart. Most of the population all over the world.
By
is
the
stupid.
way, we can completely confirm the IQ of Israel being 96 or 93 or whatever it is.
I don't know.
It seems
about that.
completely realistic to me.
Talk
Yeah, I
about
can't remember
us.
what the current estimate is. It's somewhere in the 90s. I think it's like 95. Yeah, so with ultra orthodox, that's like a spectrum. You have ultra orthodox, and you have like Haredi and Hasidim. So there are
No,
within
they
that-
can't. They cannot take the regular IQ test. Mind you, they never studied math or English or like so. When you're giving it, it's like it's a cultural thing. You trying to measure their IQ with like a cultural way of you measuring it, and
No,
they're
no.
different.
Yeah, it's cultural, but they're also not selectively breeding. So they'll breed everyone. So like
Right.
we're getting everything. We have geniuses there, but we have mostly retards.
But yeah, so there is a percentage of them that can participate in the society. They're not all like just separate living like the Amish. The Amish are kind of a Christian American equivalent. It's not just like living totally from the outskirts of society. Some of them do participate and get.
No, we
higher-
can't do that in Israel. We can't separate like that.
They're all
like the
over.
Amish.
They're all over.
It's too small of a country.
It's too small. They're everywhere. They're in every neighborhood. They're in every bus. They're in every. They're everywhere.
Like the largest Orthodox neighborhood is Bnei Brak, which is 10-minute walk like a walk to Tel Aviv.
And it's a business center of Israel.
And Tel Aviv is the secular center.
Also Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak is a huge business center. They're like in business. They're everywhere. Like everywhere.
No, but the secular aren't in Bnei Brak. They're still separated, but they're so close to one another.
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting to see how that'll play out. So basically what I'm getting at, there is some tension, but it seems like basically the Orthodox have already kind of won out demographically, so it doesn't really matter long term.
Long term, it will be interesting to see. It looks like they won, but
there's going to have to be reform one way or the other, because
right.
the way that it's designed now is that a working population pays for a non-working minority, and when that minority becomes a majority, there's got to be a change.
Right. Yeah. So they won't be able to do just the government-funded Torah studies and be exempt from the military then.
I'm sorry, I wandered off for 1 second. What was your question again?
I was saying, like, when the Orthodox become the majority there, you won't be able to have the government-funded yeshiva schools or the exemption from the military. That'll have to change,
so
I
if
assume.
you look at your screen,
way before they become the majority, like already now, it's becoming like
and
impossible.
This is the interview that I did in January with Luke McKee.
I'm betting the next government is not going to be so kind to them. That's their last. How do you call this? That's the Shirat HaBalbul, the swamp singing.
To put it in the idea of you guys, like they're a success story. The way you guys could take this model and run with it. Just have because these religious people are completely the same phenotypes. Like they're completely the same people. I mean, this is racism par excellence, and they're winning, and so whatever their winning formula, I would more than tell you guys that this is a way to win, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see models like that in America with the Mormons and with the Amish. You do see these religious conservative minorities that are having tons of kids way above the national average. The only thing is, America, we have open borders, so it's like their high fertility rate is always being countered by the fact we just have tons of new people coming in. So it never shifts that way. But if they close the border, yeah, we'd be like a majority Mormon country in like 4 decades.
Right.
Yeah, so then the next issue would be the issue of leftism in Israel. Like, you were talking about how the leftists were actually one of the major groups involved in founding Israel. I kind of was under the impression that leftism is kind of an import to Israel via diaspora, Ashkenazi diaspora that have come into Israel. So, like, what is the relationship with leftist Jews in Israel? Like, what is the tension there? How is that going? How much power do they actually have?
What do you want it?
The left wing?
Yeah, you want it?
Yeah,
the country was established by the left wing. Like, in 1948, like 90% were the left wing, secular Jews.
But what you need to understand where these left wing they came from being Orthodox.
Right, they're just like 1 or 2 generations away from being these Orthodox people.
They're the generation. They were raised Orthodox, and they decided that they don't stand by these values anymore. So they adopted Zionism.
Yeah, but like
instead,
David Ben Gurion goes to his dad, goes, "I don't believe in God," and David Ben Gurion's dad says, "I don't either, but just we live in this community, so just keep quiet." So it's been happening within that community.
But even way before, I'm talking about Herzl. The beginning of Zionism, like at the 19th century, are people that left being Orthodox and adopted Zionism instead, and started coming to Israel. The first wave of immigrants of Zionists, and then they basically founded Israel as a secular heaven. They have lots of rights in establishing the Israel. And by the way, boys and girls joined fighting before we even had the IDF. They're the ones that freed Jerusalem and freed Israel from the Arabs in 1948 and before that. So leftists are here. It's not like something that came lately. It's not like influenced from America. It's even, they were like influenced more from Russian communism when they came here. They're establishing kibbutzes, which means like a way of living together, and everybody's like sharing all the sources. You know what kibbutz is?
It's like a commune, I guess. Like I don't know if you're familiar with a commune is.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a commune way of living. They took the many places like this happened in Israel in the founding of Israel. So who are they now?
The totally failed at this point.
Right, but they're still holding on. Like if you look at like the three legs of of what's happening in a democracy, look at academia, they rule, legal system, they rule, and the media, they rule. So, and they're still the majority if we're talking numbers in Israel. A lot of them are not like, they have this traditional way about them. They're not anti. The hardcore is anti religious totally, but the peripheral people, like, they're like traditional, they're not anti, but they adopted some other values, and they fear for their life now. They feel that with this legal reform and with the demographics, Israel will become more and more fanatic, Orthodox country, which means to them homophobia, hatred of women, and stuff like that. So they fear for their way of living, for their values.
Right.
What was the
right.
question?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Overall curious with the situation. It's kind of surprising to me that the left is so strong in Israel, because you would figure that the ongoing kind of ethnic tension with Palestinians would drive Jews to a more nationalistic, more conservative mentality, but it seems not to be the case from what I'm hearing.
But the left wing was always conservative and nationalistic. That's kind of weird. How do you
so
explain
it's
that?
not.
What?
So,
Like the left wing was always
Right,
was nationalistic.
right.
They were extremely nationalistic.
Right. Right now, a small sect of them. I just told you, if you remember, that they exchanged being Orthodox 100 years ago for the new religion, which is Zionism. But I never said that Zionism is basically, to you, you can translate it into nationalism, right? Holding on to the country of Israel meant a lot to them. They fought for it. The army is like the main value. They worked the land. They did agriculture. They're like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the way that you see left wing,
more like
the way that you go ahead.
Nationalism. Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't like so there isn't really a problem with like liberal Jews. Like, are there like Palestinian rights activists, like ethnic Ashkenazi Palestinian rights activists, and that kind
Right, of course. I said that's the minority of the leftists. That's the radical leftists. There's groups of they're like fighting for the rights of Palestinians, and they're the ones that if you look at demonstration, they would be like lifting the flag of Palestine or PLO, whatever you want to call it. I don't think there's a Palestine, but PLO, which is a terror organization, and they're like, we call them post-Zionism. Okay, so they're like. They don't even know what they want, but they object to the core of like being Orthodox
Like
Jew.
they don't even know that they're not being nationalistic at this point. Like if they're told like, you're not being nationalistic, they go, no, I love it,
Right. Some of them do know. Some of them define themselves as. But
if you carry their ideas to the end, like it would be the end of the country so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That
definitely.
But
like,
they don't. Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, they just don't relate to their own definition, I guess.
Are any of them consciously inspired by the old, how would it be pronounced, Canaanism movement? I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes. No, Canaanism is something else completely, but like
Canaan?
Yeah. Canaan was like a group of mainly, by the way, artists and like people that wrote in like, let's say 70 years ago, but I know what you mean, but no, I don't think the modern person that lives in Israel today even know. The reason I know is because I'm a teacher, but I don't think they would know even what you're talking about.
Wait, he's not talking about. Are you talking about Kahana?
No, Canaan.
Canaan?
Canaanites.
Canaanism was a kind of a rival to Zionism. It was like a pan-Semitism, the idea of like creating a Canaanite identity, like basically fusing Jews and Arabs together under a single, more racial identity rather than a religious one.
Is this another example of these guys knowing more than I do about my own
No,
country?
I know,
Okay.
I know. But the reason you know about it is because you're learning about Israel from like reading. You're not actually living here. No, they don't. They don't.
What were they? A group of 20 people? Like,
Yeah.
It was
So
fairly small. The only reason I know about it is actually a few of them played around with like going back to Semitic paganism rather than monotheism. So as a pagan,
true,
I encountered them like that.
true. Right, but it's so esoteric. I would say 99.9999 Israelis would not know what you're talking about. I happen to know, but it's not the influence on the radical leftists. I think today's radical leftists are driven, first of all, from the denying of their own Jewish identity, lots of hatred towards religion and what Orthodox Jews has made out of religion, which is a whole different discussion. And like I would say more like auto anti-Semitism, which means like hating yourself as a group of people. And they would actually will be for Arabs and Muslims, like which against their own values. Like, how would you justify that you're doing like this Thursday a pride parade in the middle of Jerusalem? And when I would say to them, why aren't you conducting the same pride parade in Arab cities? They'll go, no, that they'll be putting a finger in the eye of the Muslims. But how about putting a finger in the eye of like all the million people in Jerusalem that are religious, Jews religious, that's okay. So they're like phony because all they're afraid of is the Muslims will go violent on them and Jews will not.
Yeah, there's a similar dichotomy in the West. A lot of feminists, obviously they're feminists, but they never criticize Islam's attitudes toward women or gays. A lot of the gay rights activists, the mainstream ones in the West, won't actually acknowledge Islam's attitude towards homosexuality.
Right, but just because of fear, out of fear, Muslims made it very clear that if you'll mess with them, they'll kill you. So
yes.
the argument just died, and we're just like, oh, we respect that. We respect that.
Yeah, it's a similar dynamic here. So I guess get right into one of the most, well, actually, no, we'll do so diaspora, like, from what I've seen, it seems like the Jewish diaspora, especially centered in America, I mean, there still is the Zionist faction, but the left or liberal Jews in the West are kind of trying to push away from Israel. Like, the Zionist faction, as Israelis, what is your perception of the relationship with the diaspora anymore? Is it getting worse? Is it about the same?
Aaron will take that one.
We don't care. They don't care about American Jews. They don't care about me being here. They frown if they hear my accent. They don't like American Jews. You guys aren't loved over here. The same way you guys don't love them. The Israelis don't love American Jews either.
It's not about loving. We really, really, really don't care. Like the official policies of the governments will always be like, oh, we love them. Let's try to get them closer.
Even the dynamics of money is
Right.
going the other direction. It used to be American Jews were giving money to
Right.
Israel, and like for the last 30 years has been the other direction.
Right. I'll give you an example. Like here you get free education, and like let's say that a Jew is living in America, not in an Orthodox group, and he wants to give some sort of a Jewish education to his kids. He has to pay like $30,000 to a private institution a year. So I think like 4 years ago came the idea that Israel government is going to help these communities and send them money to like help them to raise their kids. So to send them into Jewish educations, like we really and all the Israelis are like, are you guys crazy? We're gonna send them money if they want free education. They can like come to Israel and live in Israel. We really don't care about diaspora Jew. The average Israeli couldn't care less. The only thing that upsets us is when diaspora Jews are like having these opinions about our policies and they're expressing them publicly. Like we should do this in the reform, we should do that, our government should be this and that. Like put your money where your mouth is. You want to have an opinion about what's going on in Israel, you have to come here and suffer the consequences of these decisions. So
and they'll make fun of your American accent. It's like they're funny. It's like they love to do that.
right. So we don't care about Jews in in America. We don't care about Jews in Europe. We don't care about Jews in South America. You want us to care about you. You come here, be a part of the group, and suffer with us or have fun with us.
I mean, when you say we don't care, we're talking about the general population. I'm sure like the government will say, no, we have many programs set up in
many programs. We have a minister, and the job of the minister is to tour around all these countries and meet all these supposedly Jewish students and have them arrange all these activities or whatever. But really, we do not care.
Yeah,
There's
no,
really
that's-
they're really different people. Like I've experienced American Jews and I've experienced Israeli. Like they don't even seem like the same type of people, except for when my mom went to the airport and started bullying everybody around. Then I saw the connection, the rudeness.
Okay, I'll give you another angle. Maybe I was too radical. I'll tell you when we do care. Let's say that a person here is seriously ill and he's secular, he doesn't have any connection to a Jewish community or to whatever, and he needs to do a surgery that can only be conducted in the US, let's say. So he would go, or the family would go to Los Angeles. Within, I think, a day, they would be set up by the Jewish community there. So I guess you can say that there's this, it's like a family that you're not in touch with, like your second cousin that you'll never talk to. But if it comes to like the thing, like, okay, I need something, they would be there. I've heard that story again and again and again and again. Like if you need something over there, they'll set you up within no time. I keep hearing this all everywhere around me, but nobody wants to be
because they want to feel like the Israeli option is not the good one. They'll like hire Israelis on top jobs in New York firms. Just to say to themselves, I don't need to go to Israel. Look, I'm hiring Israelis over here.
Right, like to cleanse their
Guilt
or whatever. I forgot the word. Conscience. How did I forget that word? It's not such an easy relationship because it went up and downs. Like we didn't give up on them. There's a lot of shame going in. Like you're like, how come you're not coming to Israel? And then they feel guilty, so they don't want to like be in touch with Israelis because they always find themselves defending their existence in the diaspora.
The American Jews are completely a failed entity. Like they're saying that their numbers went up from 6 million to 7.5 million just recently. It's fake numbers. It's like it used to be that you had to be your mother had to be Jewish, and now they redefine it into like you just thought you were Jewish. Like
Yeah, that is very messy keeping track of
most of them don't get married to other Jews. Most of them don't even have. If they do get married to a Jew, they'll have a very small family. Big divorce rate. As far as like what's bothering you guys, it's a dying breed.
Oh no, I'm very aware of that. Like, the secular liberal Ashkenazi Jew is a thing of the past. I actually recently did an interview with Dubin, and we covered some research that's showing that liberal Ashkenazi Jews, they are dying out from their birth rate, but they're also being replaced in the elite by Asians. Asians are actually starting to outperform liberal Jews.
Oh wow, you're gonna miss the Jews so much. I think Asians are so boring.
Asians, I think, have the potential to be actually far more anti-white than Jews are, but we'll see how it goes.
But like,
it's like out of the kitchen into the fire, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So it's like you want the Asians. The Asians are Shem, 100%. You got they're Shemites. They're Semites, basically.
Yeah, I'm not totally familiar with the biblical genealogy. Yeah, I guess that would be how that would work from the three sons of Noah. But yeah, no. Oh, another thing related to that is, what is it called? The birthright trip. Like, how obnoxious are these American Jewish kids that just they're like college kids that come over to Israel? Are they kind of kept segregated into like touristy areas? Do they just run around the country? Like, what is that like?
Oh, Taglit.
Yeah, Taglit. You barely feel them.
Yeah, you don't feel them. Nobody knows. They're cute. They're groups of. By the way, lots of tourists are coming to Israel all the time.
It's like a
especially-
10-day trip.
Yeah, they're cute. Nobody knows they're here. They're coming. They're going. Nobody cares. But this was a nice initiation, whatever. Of what was his name? That Sheldon Adelson gave
Yeah.
them money. They said, okay, so you have to come to Israel once for free and see it, and they take them to all the nice places, but they don't hide conflicts or political or social. They come around.
By the way, I think it's mostly funded by the Israeli government. Too.
Right, right.
Sheldon Adelson, I think his money is like 30% of the money.
It's like a wedding program for Jews to meet other Jews. I think when their parents are sending them, like, oh, go along, be with other Jewish girls and Jewish boys at the trip. You might fall in love and not assimilate.
Right. No, that is a big issue. How much is that happening in Israel? Like Jew, non-Jew intermarriage, and then what is kind of the relationship with the different like main Jewish sub-ethnicities, the Ashkenazi, the Mizrahim, Sephardi? Like how much intermarriage with totally non-Jews, and what is the relationship? Like, is there a lot of intermixing? Is there kind of a class issues with the subflavors of Jew?
All right. Let's put it this way. The year 2000.
You're a subflavor.
What am I?
You are.
Yeah.
You're half Iraqi.
Yeah, my mom was born in Iraq, and my dad was born in Argentina. His parents came to Argentina from Poland and from Russia. So I'm like, what am I? A half breed? I'm an intermarriage, which was very rare.
It happens a lot. No, this happens a lot in
Wait,
Israel.
that my parents were married in 1972. That was very, very rare. Today, it's like a non-issue between secular Jews. It's a big issue on Orthodox. Orthodox Jews are still separating the people that are coming that came from Europe and the people that came from like Arab countries. So like if you want to call them Ashkenazis and Sephardics or Mizrahi, there's a big separation between these two groups, and inside the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox groups, they will not intermarry. They have separate minhags, ways about them of how they pray and how they celebrate the holidays, so they will not intermarry. But in the majorities of secular Israelis, it's a non-issue. Having said that, if you check this statistically, you will see that still Mizrahi people that came from Arab nations, mainly and 90% are marrying amongst themselves. Which is interesting because nothing is stopping them, no cultural boundaries or no taboos to not intermarry, but they just like their own groups. But in the year 2000, Israel got a big wave of immigration, supposedly Jewish immigration from Russia. More than half of it were non-Jews. Today, I think the numbers, when I say non-Jews, I mean halachically, like they had the right to come here. They were defined as Jews that have the right to come back to Israel, like legally. But if you're looking at it like ethnically, whatever, their Jewish connection was pretty low, like a one grandfather from the side of the father.
Yeah, it's my understanding that, yeah, that's the way it is with the legal law. It's one grandparent on either side.
So basically you're stuck today with, the estimations are over 500,000 non-Jews Israelis. Most of them don't even know that they're non-Jews, because like when you're secular, you're not practicing anything religion, whether you're a Jew or a non-Jew. So they're just like raised here, going to the education system, coming to the army, and the first time that they come across a problem is when they want to get married, and then you want to go through the Orthodox administration to get married, and then they go, okay, you cannot get married in an Orthodox way here. So if you want to get married, you'll have to do like civil weddings, whatever. You cannot, or you can convert into Judaism. That's a big, huge problem, becoming bigger every day.
Interesting. So I would assume that there isn't a lot of intermixture between ethnic Jews and like Palestinians.
None, almost none. It's like such numbers that are not even worth mentioning.
Well, that's good.
No.
What?
Oh, let me just say something. There is a phenomenon of Arabs having a romantic, supposedly, let's put this, relationship with some Jewish girls, low class, how do you call them? The socioeconomics really low. And there is like a really, really small phenomenon like this.
It's probably equivalent in the States to the kind of white girls that date black dudes.
I don't know about that, but
less so.
way
Or
less, way
even
less.
worse
It's
than that. Oh shit!
very, very esoteric, very, very esoteric. Like, we even have an organization that these girls can call and they'll come to save them. And go, oh, you made a mistake. Don't worry, we'll come and save you. But it's a very, very esoteric thing that's happening.
There's no organization in America that would save the white woman from the black marriage, right?
No, no, unfortunately not yet. No.
You guys should organize that.
We'll get on that.
We even made a donation to this organization. It's funny. But Jewish men with Palestinian women does not exist. So actually, the state of Israel took a stand.
Very racist here.
Yeah, took a stand regarding these Palestinian men having romantic relationships with Jewish women as a terror way of, like as a terror way of handling things, or like a national crime. You know what I'm talking about? Did I make myself clear? Like, let's say that an Arab guy is raping a Jewish woman. They want to legislate that it will not be a crime, like a regular crime. It will be like a terror, like a national crime.
Oh wow.
Serious? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice if we had something like that in America, like some kind of mandatory hate crime
Actually,
enhancement for the black.
I can tell you a funny story about like the Zionists, the first Zionists in the 40s and the 50s. They had to deal a lot with that. Lots of Arabs back then were trying to get Jewish women and rape them, so they handled it. They would catch them. They would go into their village and catch the person that raped, and they would like how do you say that? Cut their balls, like castrate them. How do you say that?
Castrate, yes.
Yeah.
Castrate.
That's how Israel dealt with it in the 40s and the 50s.
Well, that's a very efficient way of dealing with the problem.
It worked.
Yeah.
Look at us today. It worked.
So, I guess more broadly, the issue of the Arabs and blacks. With blacks, I guess we'll start with blacks first. There are these, what are they, Ethiopian Jews, and like there's some debate about whether or not they're even Jewish in any meaningful sense, and like crime and stuff. Like, what is the issue there with the Africans in Israel?
Back in the 80s, this group of Ethiopians claimed to be Jews. We sent rabbis to check that. Eventually, the head rabbi decided, okay, they keep some traditions here, but if they would come to Israel as Jews, if we will bring them as Jews, we would have to convert them. As a result from that, a lot of them became like traditional Jews. They lived in very sweet communities, but they segregated because, like, the elderlies.
There's not a lot of them. How many Ethiopian Jews are there?
I can check it in a second, but really, really minority.
You hardly see them in. Mostly when you see black people in Israel, it's Eritrean.
Yeah, it's like illegal immigrants. The Ethiopian community kept a very good, solid community, not a high crime rates, but they had some clashes with the police because there's some cultural things, like the state of the men. The men used to run the tribe, and when they came here, they didn't have that status anymore. So you know what I'm saying? They had like a family patriarchic structure in Ethiopia, and when they came here, the state of Israel kind of like broke that. So the kids turned out a little bit like, we don't know what we're doing with ourselves. We're not listening to our fathers. We don't know what our community rules. So they a lot of them became like a little bit like criminals, whatever. Mostly, it's a peaceful, very, very peaceful community. I think by the when was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, they got like influenced the young generation, like the teenagers that I used to teach them in Haifa a lot. They got influenced by the black culture that they saw on MTV and on on TV. And like, okay, so we're like blacks. Started acting like blacks, started rebelling like blacks, and started talking about racism that was like hidden, supposedly racism against them. That we're not getting into clubs, we're not getting this, we're not getting that. So they kind of like demonstrated a little bit against police brutality. A couple of them got shot by policemen and they made a big deal out of it, just like in America. But it died like, like a fart in a soccer field, because Israel is not racist towards these Ethiopians as long as they're Jews.
What?
Okay. But having said that,
No, I'm
we're
not.
We're not.
Israel's racist against Ethiopia.
We're not marrying them.
When I was learning Hebrew, I go like, "Hey, where's the Ethiopians?" Like, well, they're kind of different from us, and we have them learning Hebrew in another place.
There's an Okay, so there's an okay. You're funny. So there's an IQ.
It's not funny. That's the truth.
There's an IQ problem that nobody wants to admit, whether it's organic or it's cultural. So I would say last month, I'm a teacher. I took all my class to the drafting office. They go through physical checks and blah, blah, blah. And then they give them a grade. And by that grade, they decide which unit they're going to go to. Most of my students, because I teach in this like great school, they go to these superb units. And Ethiopians don't pass these tests. So they're thinking of changing the whole method of grading young people that are going to be drafted to the army, just in order for it to include the group of Ethiopians that so far has been secluded because of like they're not passing the IQ minimums levels. Nobody knows by now. They were born in Israel. They're like a third generation here already, but there's still like a very, very severe cultural thing that make either it's cultural or organic that makes them not score high in these tests.
Right. I mean, I would attribute it to genetics, but yeah, that's a problem in America. That's a problem everywhere. That is just one of the major problems of our civilization today, is that we refuse to acknowledge these differences, and we have to make up these convoluted narratives to try to explain them away.
No, I think I'm not denying the genetics, but I'm just saying there has been some. I think the genetic gaps can lead to a gap in IQ average, but I think cultural gap on top of the genetics makes it like even impossible. More noticeable. The genetics could have been resolved slowly if they would combine culturally, but instead of being combined culturally, they keep on segregating, and therefore the genetics stays the same. The genetics gaps just like.
In theory, some kind of eugenic selection could increase intelligence, but I can tell you why culture does play a role. That improved living conditions and culture doesn't change them that much, because American blacks actually have been living pretty damn well for a long time, and they're still significantly below.
It's not about well or not well. It's about what's your culture group. What are your values? What are you doing? It's not just like, oh, you have money. Okay, you have money. What do you do with it? You still live in a black culture.
In-group
So that's not gonna make you go places.
Come on, culture schmulture. Come on, what are you talking about?
All right. I don't want to go into it.
Don't worry, I'll shape her up later.
Okay, don't worry. I'll leave you guys for your racist views later. I'm just here to answer questions because my husband
I really
told me to. I'm a good wife.
Well, that is good.
He said there's this guy who hates Jews so much. You have to explain to him why he hates them, so he can know better how to hate us even more. Am I doing a good job so far?
Yes, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. So I guess Palestinians and Arabs, that's kind of the big thing that your guys are known for. Like, again, day to day on the ground, like is it segregated? Like how often do you actually run into Arabs in the street? To what extent is there like random ethnic violence? Like what actually does it look like on the ground day to day for the average Israeli?
I answer.
Go ahead. You're doing good.
I'm doing well.
Yeah, you're very articulate.
Yeah. Arabs are 20% of the population. Arabs are everywhere, but there's cities that you call them, like Jerusalem, for example, combined cities. Like you have 900,000 people in Jerusalem. I think by now 400,000 of them are Arabs. But Jerusalem is supposedly kind of segregated. Like you have neighborhoods of Arabs and you have neighborhoods of Jews. But still, Arabs are everywhere.
Yeah, we're in constant contact with them, and for the 99.9% of the contacts, it's fine.
Yes, for example, I'm a teacher. Most of the staff that's cleaning my school are Arabs. They're coming from the Arab neighborhoods. I'm not friends with them. I'm not talking to them, but they're there every day.
They want us dead.
Right. I'm using the light rail, public transportation. 90% of taxi drivers are Arabs. I would say 40% of or 30% of the people using the light rail are Arabs. So you see them everywhere, even if they don't live in your neighborhoods. Let's say you go to the hospital. I would say today 50% of doctors and staff are Arabs. You go to government office, since you have all these reforms that you're supposed to come. By the way, there's citizens Arabs and there's Palestinian Arabs. You are aware of that? Or should I explain that 20% are citizen Arabs? I'm talking about they have citizenships and they live within the, let's call it the green line borders of Israel. Am I clear?
Yeah, why don't you explain the details of the citizen and non-citizen Arabs, the Palestinians or whatever you want to call them?
All right, so there you have the 1948 war, and then you have the 1967 war, where Israel is occupying more territory. But whatever. When we established the state of Israel in 1948, Israel decided to acknowledge all the Arabs within its borders as toshav, not citizen, which is a little bit under citizenship. But then I think like in the 50s they got citizenship. So right now you have 20% of the Israelis citizens that are Arabs with citizenship, with all the rights, all the privileges, and none of the chovot, obligations. For example, they do not have to serve the army. They don't get. It's not mandatory. Like they don't. If they want to volunteer, they can. But like I would say, 0.005% of them do. And they just go to school and they become doctors, engineers, whatever they want, or they can become dentists, whatever they want to be. So they're living amongst us. Now you have Israel occupying more territories in 1967, but not actually defining them as being a part of Israel. Like it's still, in a question mark. So all the Palestinians there, Gaza and the West Bank, if you want to call that, are Palestinians. They're not citizens, but they come in and out Israel. Not the ones from Gaza. Even ones from Gaza, by the way, they have authorization to come and work here. And the ones from the West Banks are like, they're mixing within us every day. They come to work. For example, we're sitting talking to you right here from Jerusalem. One building next to us, our neighbor, is being like renovated now. Everybody that's building and renovating there are from the West Bank. They're not citizens. They come in a truck in the morning and they go back in the afternoons. I'm talking about a 30-minute drive from Jerusalem. But they're going through barriers, army barriers, that supposedly are checking them. But ask me more. What wasn't I clear about? What else did you want to know?
Oh no, that's about it. Just the distinction between those that are technically Israeli citizens and those that aren't. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. What I'm hearing is, I mean, it's bad. There is tension. There is conflict, but it's not like constant shankings and attacks and stuff.
It's kind of a constant fear because you don't know, like, you go on the light rail, you see a person. Many times I went off the train because you can't really tell what's going on. There is a tension. You don't you don't talk to them, and there is fear. And a lot of the times, especially in Jerusalem, a lot of the times you have a combination, like they work together. I think for the last 3 years there's been more and more citizens, supposedly Arab citizens, that are committing terror attacks against Jews. Something else that you might be interesting of knowing: the state of Israel, the secular state of Israel. Hang on, is that our daughter saying bye? Bye bye. Correspond with me. Um, the state of Israel hoped that the ones that we did give citizenship to are going to have more and more, they're going to be like this Israeli civil identity, you know? Like they're going to be feeling more and more belonging to the state of Israel, and they'll be loyal to the state of Israel. And it kind of started happening in the 70s and the 80s, but somewhere in the mid 80s and 90s, the Palestinians found themselves, the ones that are inside of Israel, that are citizens, found themselves more and more developing their Palestinian identity, realizing that they're the same people. And Israel drew an artificial line between them and their cousins and says, you are citizens, you're Israeli, you're not citizens, you're not Israeli. Am I being clear? So they're like, no, I'm a Palestinian as well. So now you're
You have Chris Christie president, George Santos vice president, and that's how it's going to be. No, they'll quickly kill Chris Christie so they can get their food person. I mean, think about it like this, okay? So they're my constituents. So May 28th or May 29th, 1984 was when they finally busted Jonathan Pollard. It took 14 years for the Israelis to finally admit that Jonathan Pollard was one of theirs.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you guys. You've both been great. I don't know if you would stay for a couple more minutes. If there's any questions in the chat that aren't too inflammatory, they can actually be brought up on screen. That would be great.
I can stay.
No.
We can stay.
We can stay a couple minutes, sure.
Yeah, sure.
All
Why
right.
why do you hate Jews, Narvin?
Well, that is a complicated thing to get into on.
Because he's got good taste.
He's got a good taste.
So it's a combination.
Is that your picture? Because you look like a Jew with the curls and everything.
Yes, that is my picture, and no, you're not the first person to say that to me. I am not. I am English almost entirely by ancestry, but there might have been a little Irish that got in there, and possibly allegedly some black, according to who knows. Anyway, no, I'm not Jewish. It comes from a combination of my religious views as a pagan. At a very young age, I had an evangelical aunt that read me the Old Testament and obviously did not react too well to that. Objection to circumcision, and then obviously as someone who is a race realist, there were a lot of the very influential people in promoting like the behavioralist blank slate attitude that became dominant in Western academia were ethnically Jewish. Now, as you read into that more and more, you realize why that's true. There were still plenty of Gentiles that promoted that kind of thinking and were part of the anti-eugenics movement. But yeah, no, originally when I became kind of aware of racial stuff, I looked at the stuff that just talked about like how many Jews were disproportionately involved in promoting blank slate stuff. Although again, there have been Jews that have pushed back against that. Actually, before World War II, many of the prominent eugenicists actually were Jewish, ironically.
Mm-hmm. But you're like, wow, you talk fast. What did you say at the beginning? You identify as a pagan?
Yes, I'm a pagan.
What does that mean to you?
Polytheistic, animistic, multiple gods, the kind of thing you're supposed to cut people's heads off for in the Old Testament.
But what do you like? You have like statues in your place.
Yes.
bring
I have
them.
An altar. I actually have 3 shrines. I have a primary one for deities. I have one for like land spirits and one for my ancestors. It's kind of like if you're familiar with Hinduism, European paganism.
Yeah, I was in India.
Yeah, it's fairly equivalent to like Hinduism or Shinto in Japan.
Mm-hmm. All right, and like you.
Well, I want to hear more about his grandmother reading the Old Testament. What about?
No, it was my great aunt. She was like tutoring me to learn to read, but part of that was just reading me the Bible. So
And what
in
did you
America,
not like?
He didn't like that they kill all the pagans.
yeah,
If
there
you
was that. There was just like a lot of. Bear in mind, I was like an 8-year-old raised with the very at the time very American. Like my and as an 8-year-old, my understanding of God at that time was very much like the New Agey self help kind of general, really soft Christianity that's promoted in America. So, and my aunt just like read me like this really gruesome stuff from the Old Testament. There was just kind of a very young, visceral, you know, like disgust response. And then because of my heart condition, I was actually not circumcised. It became very common in America. It's weird. It's like a secular thing here.
Wait. What's the connection between what's your heart condition? What do you have
I
in
have
non-circum?
hypoplastic left heart syndrome. They believed I really wouldn't survive anyway, so they figured the trauma of circumcision A could add too much strain on the heart, and B they're like, why put him through that? He's probably going to die in a week anyway. Thankfully, I did not, but I was also not circumcised. So when I was older, and I like came across jokes about that in media, I didn't even know what it was, and my mom had to explain it to me. Just hearing that like you would do that to someone's body kind of freaked me out.
How old are you?
I'm 28 now. 28.
Hmm.
I've been in this thing, the kind of the racial scene, probably since I was 19. But I've been a pagan probably since 15 or 16.
All right. And what did you go to school for, like in the university or college or whatever? What did you study?
Oh, no college education for me. No, I am a dropout goy.
All right, that's good.
Yeah. So questions. So let's see. Was there anything here? That's more of a comment, but it's kind of funny. Palestinians are the Mexicans of the Middle East.
Okay.
Palestinians and the Mexicans in the Middle East.
Okay.
Are the
They love children. They have lots of them, and they're very much family oriented. Mexicans are religious. I'm not.
Mexicans strap bombs to themselves and blow up restaurants and stuff? No, I don't think
Nah,
so.
nah. Are the not quiet citizens still paying income taxes? What's not quite citizens?
she's
Oh,
referring to these the Palestinians that don't quite have Israeli
no,
citizenship.
absolutely not. Of course not. And
It's a good deal for them.
It's a good deal. Israel is actually they come here to work and they don't pay taxes, and just fun for them.
Right.
There's more questions. That's fun.
Gregory Malchuk. Great to see you, Greg. He's an intactivist, an American anti-circumcision activist. Is there friction between Orthodox and secular Israelis over the latter having lower circumcision rates?
It's a very esoteric phenomenon. Not. It's kind of interesting question. Can I answer a little bit longer than 30 seconds?
Sure. Go as long as you want.
Okay, so there's like two things that secular are keeping. They keep nothing. They don't keep Shabbat. They don't keep kosher. They don't care about most of religious rules. But two things that are keeping in a very tight way, which is circumcising their sons and Yom Kippur, fasting on Yom Kippur, which is a prophecy that in the age of Messianic ages, actually, that's the only two things that Jews are going to keep. And there is an esoteric phenomenon of like people not circumcising, but it's very, very, very low rate. So it's not like something to argue about publicly or
Yeah, I would say like 2%
Right.
of the secular Jews.
of the secular Jews, right? So like the majority of it's a non controversy even in Israel, circumcised or not circumcised. It's just like you do it.
I
So
guess
it's
that
not
makes
a-
sense, obviously, because it's a Jewish country.
It's also like, nothing on them. So like you see these secular people that, why would they agree to, like, I guess they agree to it because it's not, they're not feeling it.
What, the baby's feeling it?
Yeah.
Well, I
No,
bet I don't
nah.
want to get into like a whole circumcision debate, but it's probably just a cultural thing. I mean, in America, how it became popularized was, well, the kind of the modern thing that people believe that isn't really true is the idea that it's cleaner, less disease. But originally, it was actually the guy who normalized circumcision as the secular practice, Kellogg, the guy who made the cereal. He actually was a fanatical anti-masturbation advocate. He believed that masturbation is what made people insane, and he believed circumcising males would prevent them from masturbating. So yeah, that's
It
actually
comes from a Jewish halacha.
So how it
Torah,
became a popular
halakha,
practice in America secularly, that's how it became normalized in America, was
right?
Kellogg and
But
his theory that, yeah.
halachically Jewish, it's not okay to masturbate because you're wasting your semen. The person in the Bible, in the Torah, that did that, was accused of not impregnating his wife.
I'll never look at Kellogg's cornflakes of the same again.
You
No,
haven't
well, he
before.
also the other policy he wanted to do that didn't catch on, thankfully, was he wanted to burn girls' clitorises off with acid.
Oh,
Well,
that's
that's
nice.
fun.
Well, that's okay.
That's totally good. I can tell you that one of the latest Supreme Court in Israel decided that, when an African comes here illegally, I'm not talking about a Jew, I'm talking about just like immigrants, that come here illegally. They enter the country and they're claiming to be refugees, but they're very, there's like criteria to be a refugee. You know that all over the world, in America and European, Israel is signing all these European agreements about what is a refugee, right? What are the criterions? So this lady came to Israel from Africa, and she said she ran away because her family wanted to circumcise her, and that's why she's here for. So the Supreme Court decided that that's a good enough cause to say that she's a refugee. But once the Supreme Court rules that, that means they're actually adding a criteria to what a refugee is and basically opening the gate here for like all of Africa, because that's a very vast thing to do in Africa, is to do a women's circumcision. So basically, the Supreme Court ruled that a woman's circumcision is a reason to be a refugee in Israel. You can get a refugee protection if somebody tried to circumcise you as a woman.
Oh yeah, that's way too many people flood in. In America with Mexico, like literally, well, not even just Mexicans, it's all Latin America. They're literally just economic migrants. Like they're basically saying, I'm oppressed because my country's poor, so I have to come live in America. And I guess this might be the last question. Are Israelis afraid of Iran getting a nuke?
Because
Yes.
they would have what?
Because they would have a bargaining chip on the world stage, or are they actually afraid they're going to launch one knowing their holy sites would be destroyed?
Just the holy sites? What about us?
Like living is nice.
Living is kind of nice, yes.
So what I'm hearing is like there is a legitimate fear of Iran getting a nuke and using it.
Absolutely, but you guys should fear that too. It's the end of the. It's the
But
end
we're
of
really
the.
isolated over here in America. Even if they have nukes, like we're hard to hit.
We'll cause a nuclear winter that you're not going to be happy with.
Right. Let's put it this way: it's the end of the world if they attack us. Yeah, you're not far enough, unless you're on the moon.
But I don't go through a fear of like I don't think that they're going to do it. Like I don't even get the fear that I don't even get the idea that they're really focused on us, Iran.
Oh, they are.
It just seems like rhetoric to win a few elections or just to satisfy just to make yourself look tough to some religious fanatics. But I don't really think they're that focused on us.
It doesn't matter what two Jews in Jerusalem think. What matters is that our government and our army are dealing with this night and day. That's the number one
But they
subject.
don't. They don't deal with it. It's
That's
been
the
same problem for 20 years,
they're
and they
dealing
don't
in
do
different-
anything.
They're dealing in different ways. One way is diplomatic, which is a complete failure, and the other way is
We assassinate people.
We assassinate people. We bomb their factories. Every 2 days, you hear something went wrong in Iran. If you follow the news, you should follow the news from Iran. Every week, there's something going on there that we're responsible for.
That's
Well,
true.
Well, yeah. Thank you for that. I don't know if you guys want to address this. Then I know Pigger was probably sounded like he was about done, but I know that people get mad if I don't address this. What happens when the West stops funding Israel? So, like, you guys want to get into the whole foreign aid to Israel? Like, your take on that?
Go ahead. I'm like, stop funding us.
Yeah, it actually comes to 1% of our GDP, I think, at this point,
Yeah.
or less than 1%. Every year, it goes less and less of a percentage of our GDP. So, like, what country would be affected if they lost 1% of their GDP
Right.
in the world? Like, there would be no effect. And I think that I think what they're asking from us for the money that we do receive is like they're more of a bother than what's worth the money.
Most of what is the world? You like, I think last week we tried to legislate that every money that comes in here as a donation from these committees, whatever countries like Germany with all the audacity is giving tons of money to all these leftist organizations, Israel is going to tax by 60%, and Europe forced us. They operated a lot of pressure on the government to not legislate that, and we postponed legislating it. Like we're basically saying to European countries, take your stinking money and we're gonna tax it, so don't give it. Don't give it to us. Israel is wheeling and dealing weapon deals all over the world with Europe, with Saudi Arabia, with whatever, with Dubai, and we're doing well. And I'm not quite sure that I understand the question. Like, is there like this notion that if they stop funding us, the West will stop funding us, we're gonna evaporate? Like,
yeah, in a lot of counter-Semitic circles, there is this false idea that Israel is totally dependent on foreign aid and the country would just cease to exist the minute.
Right. I would put some numbers into.
We would be better
theories.
off without it.
Yeah. I would put some numbers into these theories and just tell them thank you very much. But if they want to go into this,
we can be friends without it. You'd be better friends without it. What kind of friend gives money to the other friend and said, "Be my friend"? Like, I'm totally okay with being friends with America, but I think a good friendship would be like we don't hand this money to one another.
Right.
There's interest in friendship. America needs us too, even though it sounds like the elephant needs the fly. But
it's totally symbolic at this. Maybe in the beginning it was a necessary thing for Israel, but at this point it's completely symbolic. There is no necessity for that money whatsoever, and they interfere with our we also develop bombs and whatnot for whatever we develop bombs, and America will come in and say, look, this is ours, this is our contract, you guys have to back off, and we do, because we don't want to mess up this relationship,
right? But
so actually we're losing money. If we could have made money with that deal, and instead we back off.
Yeah, there's many examples like this. You probably don't want to go into it, but America forces Israel, like, okay, we give you money. Guess what you have to do with that money? Buy our weapon. Okay, we're firing Hellfire missiles on us in Gaza. There comes Obama and goes, guess what? No more Hellfire missiles to you. But you made us close down our missile factory, so now Palestinians have their own missiles, but we don't, because Obama said no more Hellfire missiles for you guys.
Yeah, if you guys want to promote us not getting the $3 billion dollars a year, it's actually going to help us. Like we're 100% behind you, and it's not a. It is a minority opinion, but there are lots of Israelis who think so.
More and more. Lately, more and more. I'd say in the last five years, you can hear this more and more. The stronger Israel got, the less dependent on this money is, and the more understanding of what's the real cost of that support. The real cost is a constant interfering in our policies.
Also, for every bomb you give us, you give 7 bombs to our Israeli neighbors.
Right.
I mean,
enemies.
Arab,
that's the funniest thing.
Arabs.
Yeah. Like you give us ammunition, and then you go ahead and give it to Egypt and to Jordan and to Syria and to Lebanon. Like, wow, thank you. You kept on the balance. Why don't you not give anything to anyone? And by the way, if you go to the total, just like what you said, if you go to the total, you're giving way more to our enemies.
The whole thing is a jobs program for the defense industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're interesting people, the Jews.
Oh no, I was already aware of that. I just mean that the dynamics with the U.S. No, I suspect that the relationship with America and Israel will change. I mean, obviously for Jews, it seems like it's not actually been all that beneficial. And in America, because of our demographic shift, there is this weird phenomenon. I don't know if you're aware of it, but of global POC solidarity, where American blacks now are like BLM, Black Lives Matter, are pro-Palestinian, and so are to a lesser extent some Hispanics and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts.
Yeah, good luck with that, losers. I mean,
Right.
they're a bunch of losers that like losers. So good for them.
Right, but the way our system works, like, unfortunately, because we are a quote-unquote democracy, it will shift.
You know,
but it may not negatively really impact you guys that much. It sounds like it won't really impact you guys when the foreign aid is cut off, because it sounds like it's not really doing you guys any good.
Now, yeah, I think more of a distance between Israel and America is going to be better for both of us.
Already, Biden is not friends. He never invites Bibi anymore.
Right.
Bibi's like, "Can I come?" No.
Yeah, that whole thing. Netanyahu would be a whole interesting conversation separately, but again, Pigger, I didn't want to keep you because it sounded like about 20 minutes ago you were about done, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I think an hour and a half is a good time to cut
Okay,
it. I don't wanna...
so again, thank you guys, and I will get this re-uploaded to BitChute and Odyssey, and I'll email you guys the link if you guys want to pass it around. And
you should just be on Odyssey the whole time. Forget about YouTube completely.
to do that, I have to get the paid account for StreamYard so I can stream directly to Odyssey, because streaming on Odyssey is a bit more.
You don't need StreamYards to
no, but then I'd
stream
have
to
to
Odyssey.
do OBS, and I'd have to figure out.
OBS. That's what I would. By the way, we're on Odyssey with Under Picker. We do the waifu show every week. Everybody, we can let you on if you want to criticize Israel or want to learn about Israel.
Yeah, we're having fun in our show.
Yeah, have a good time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It was good to do this interview, and I still plan to do these kind of interviews, but also long term with this channel. I'm actually trying to set up more.
Yes. Can I go? Can I be? I will kick your ass.
Have some kind of debate on religion.
There, I'm emailing you right now. I would like to do a new debate about monotheism versus paganism. Is this formal enough?
Yeah, that's perfectly formal. All right, I will. I guess I'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much for this conversation. It's been fun.
Yeah, and email me the links to your guys' channel, and when I post these to BitChute and Odyssey, I will link your guys' stuff.
All right, cool.
All right, later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Finish the stream, or what was it? Jews get the platform. Okay, this guy's cool.
Yesterday, and I got really other stuff I need to be doing tonight too. Christy says the U.S. Army has around 100 balloons up all over the world. Yeah, they're mostly monitoring balloons. They're tethered. I know about those balloons. I've seen those, but they're not EMP. We don't have EMP devices, guys. That's what I'm worried about. It's the EMP delivery devices. And so the presentation I've got is shocking in that territory. It's based on stuff I was doing 25 years ago. What can be done, and apparently what the kind of things the Chinese have been playing with. Sounds communist. Yeah, from our side. So this whole control of media, definitely, and well, the media is in on it. The so-called.
So you thought loonies and toonies were like code for sex? That's what I heard.
Wait, Clown, aren't you in all the spaces? Don't you know?
Well, that's all I heard. I didn't hear that one.
Okay.
I wasn't there for that one. I should say.
I thought. So outside my hotel, there was somebody who asked for a Tui or Looney or something, Louie, Tui, something, and I was really confused because she was wearing a dress and you could see the nipple rings poking out, and I was like, this is weird, and it was kind of a sketch area. So when I told the space, the original impression was she was, a hooker, but it turns out she was just asking for money.
When you say it was kind of a sketchy area, you just mean Las Vegas in general.
No, he's talking about Canada. This is like sketchy for Canada standards.
Oh, yikes.
Still going up. It's like wavering. You guys see that? So
Yeah, I saw
it's
the
not.
text
It's
there.
definitely attached to obviously the space. I just wanted to make sure. There's only one way to do it, and that's the way. So a girl asks you for loonies and toonies. You just think it's for sex, and then you're happy about it. You told your girlfriend about this, by the way.
Okay, A, she's not my girlfriend.
She's your girlfriend.
B, no, dude, she said we won't be official until I meet her parents. So then she started, she found it funny. And then when I corrected the whole thing the next day, being like, hey, it turns out she was just asking for money, she sent me a bunch of laughing emojis.
Holy shit, 4,000. So, she was cool with it?
40, 20.
Yeah, but apparently everyone here thinks she wasn't.
You got to get that shit under control, buddy. You got to tell her when
Holy shit.
you let her know.
Okay, dude, it keeps going up and up. The numbers keep going
Yeah,
up.
it's crazy. It's wild.
Notice how whenever I started talking about my life, it just skyrocketed.
Anthony, everyone wants to know about your love life. I mean, that's world news at this point.
You're a magnet for artificial intelligence.
Oh, the Matrix ate you,
Could be the
Sag.
DeSantis people too.
If I was a smart person, I would have invested thousands of dollars into bots to keep crashing the space for DeSantis. That would be hilarious. Because it crashed a few times, but imagine if you had a bunch more bots.
Okay,
Oh,
who's
man.
gonna start the Gibson? Go.
Yeah, I don't think he needed any help, buddy. I heard he had enough problems as it was.
Look, folks, the woke culture, we're standing up to the woke culture in Florida. Yeah, wokeism is bad. Make America Florida, people.
You should talk like DeSantis, like your shitty impersonation of DeSantis more often, because you sounded normal there.
Hey, Tryman, you tell that girlfriend that's not your girlfriend, stuff like that.
No, she, what do you call it? We need to discuss politics more because I need to get a sense of.
All right, it's starting to drop. It's starting to drop.
And by the way, thanks to Andrew from Space's dashboard helping out. It looks like they're on somewhere around a 5-minute cycle, yeah, because you're watching it peak and then slowly fade and then peak again and then slowly fade. So it looks like about a 5-minute cycle.
Oh, Kristen's in here. We
I
got.
should have
Kristen
fucking
in here.
recorded this. Damn it.
Well, it's going to be in the archives.
Just
Yeah, it'll be in the archives.
Just open your screen recording and just use it that way from
But Tryman, please continue. Tryman, please continue talking about your love life because it even kills the bots. So please continue.
What else? So we didn't really talk much today because I was pretty busy. But she sent me a message saying, "I miss you." So that's pretty interesting. So yeah.
So what did you say in response to? Did you respond?
Yeah, I said I would miss me too if I were you.
I'll take it. Not bad. We're getting better.
And then laughing emojis. And then I said, I miss you too.
Hang on. This is important. How many laughing emojis, buddy? You can
One.
go overboard. Okay.
Good job. That's solid.
Continue, Tryman. It works. Bot number is going down. Please continue.
He's actually right. What else? No, that's it. So we'll see how.
Yeah, dude. Even the bots are like committing suicide while you're
1,
talking
2,
about
3,
your story.
4,
Keep
5
doing it.
test.
Well, at least you
Al
fixed your
Pacino
mic,
just
Anthony.
Al
Yeah, you don't
Pacino-
sound
Well,
like you're
I
in
use
a
my
closet.
AirPods.
Became a father.
I'm not using my AirPods are messed up because the mic is not working properly on my AirPods.
She kidnapped him and tied his ass up. That's why he sounded like he was in the closet. He was.
Your girlfriend putting you in the closet there, Tryman?
Yeah, man. I'm a nigger. I'm a
What?
nigger.
No.
I'm a
You
nigger.
might like that.
I'm a nigger.
That's like
I'm a nigger.
professional shit. One day for you. One
I'm
day.
a nigger. I'm a nigger.
Oh,
I'm a
so
nigger.
Nuance, what do you think about Trump's birth citizenship thing?
I'm a nigger. I'm a.
I think Trump was born in America.
No.
What the
When I
fuck?
became
No,
a black
his
person.
policy. I don't know how it's gonna work.
When I became a black
Oh,
person.
you're talking about.
Al
Honestly, I thought
Pacino
you were
just
talking about
became.
the Obama birth certificate
No.
thing for a
In
second, but you're
Africa,
talking about the
what we
14th
do,
Amendment. Natural
this
born
is
citizen,
typically
illegal
in
immigrants,
Africa.
birthright
Yeah, what
citizenship.
Tom Slocum
Right?
calls
Happens
DACA.
in Africa.
I know, right?
I am
The
African.
DACA anchor baby.
Oh man, he just couldn't admit.
Taj,
No, he
wrong
really.
on
He's
that.
I know
talking
you were
nigger,
explaining
nigger.
it to him.
He's like trying
for,
to play it so cool, like, no man, I
I
know
am
DACA.
Come
Yeah,
on.
he
All
was,
right.
he was like DACA, comma,
Kumbaya.
anchor babies. It's like, no, dude, no.
No, it's like tied to the Dreamers, man. You know.
Who said you?
I really wanted him to hold that line too, because I kept asking him. I'm like, no, Tom.
Who said you are African?
And he just wouldn't.
Come to the baby.
You know, China's the number one country that does that birth tourism shit, right? Because they can afford to fly their asses here and do it.
Hey, Al Pacino just became a father. He's 82.
Yeah, they do it.
Al
They come
Pacino.
over. They have like a whole tour that they
Hey,
like
hi
bring
guys.
planefuls, and then they come over to California,
Al
and
Pacino
yeah,
became a
it's just a
father
bastardization of the 14th, and it's
83
just like,
years old.
and I don't know how it got ruled because it wasn't through
Take my
SCOTUS,
call,
was
bitch.
it? Who interpreted that though? For real, does anybody know?
It wasn't me.
Oh, the
So
bombs
they
are
could
up
play.
again.
Anthony.
The bombs are up
Oh
again.
my
We're
god.
back up. We're back up.
Isaac was right.
Anthony, tell what will you cook next time for your
Yeah, I mean, wait,
future girlfriend?
I'm sorry, I was typing something, and I want to answer Lou's question. Lou, there's some court cases, there's some jurisprudence around it. Like I believe it was people who were here legally, but they were not like permanent residents or citizens, but they had kids here, and I think they were like Chinese or something. And there's a court case about that. But as far as illegals, I don't believe there's any court precedent with respect to that.
I started taking
We know, for
hormones,
example,
and I'm
like the
turning
subject
into
to
a
the
lady.
jurisdiction thereof when it comes to like diplomats and
I
stuff.
started taking hormones.
It doesn't apply to them
taking
if
hormones.
they give birth, but
And I'm now
I think it's a
I started
defensible
taking
position. Like the
hormones.
idea that the original intent,
Hello.
and the original language of the of the 14th Amendment at the time that it was
They're not gonna
ratified
take my call.
was designed to give people who
They're
broke our
scared of
laws
me.
to come to the country illegally that their children would automatically be citizens. I mean, that's ridiculous. So.
And
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
So
I don't
have
think that
this
it went
here.
up to the Supreme Court as I think that it was like a lower court or a interpretation of the law based upon
I don't. Yeah, I think it's just like whatever the executive, like they just that's what the
like
law.
somebody said, sure, yeah, that'll fly, and
I
then
think
nobody
so.
like
Yeah, I don't think it was like an actual
argued
court
it.
case to determine that. Yeah.
So like we needed somebody to like volunteer to take that shit up because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the current court would be favorable to an interpretation, and we could like solidify it. But you really need to win 2024. If you win 2024, right, and then you get this case going, by the time it gets up to the Supreme Court, like you're solid, I think. But if you lose 2024, you probably it's basically no good. I mean, think about it. Who do we have next? We got Clarence Thomas is old as fuck. Alito's getting pretty old. Who's the oldest on the
That's
on
it.
the left side? Kagan's fairly new. Jackson's the newest.
Sotomayor's not that old.
Sotomayor's older, but she's still got a long time in her, I guess.
Yeah.
It's those two, especially Alito and Thomas. Like you got to watch it. Like Thomas,
Especially Thomas, especially with all this corruption charges and all that. You worry that if they push him hard enough, he might say, "Fuck it, I've got like a $200,000 like luxury like camper motorhome. I'm just gonna retire, and my wife and I are gonna chill out. Like I do not need this, and I certainly don't need to be facing any sort of like congressional inquiry. Like fuck that, I'm out. You know." That'd be
Yeah, chill
terrible.
out on
Could you
Harlan
imagine how
Crow's
disastrous that'd be
plane.
if Biden got to appoint Clarence Thomas's successor because he
I
caved to the
think,
pressure and like and resigned?
I think
Yeah, but
Clarence
for
is the
some reason
one.
in my mind, Clarence Thomas is not gonna be bullied out.
Yeah,
Like,
Clarence knows the magnitude of the moment. He
Let's hope, but
understands
like also
what
your
that would
health
mean
is
for
important and the
America.
stress is bad for you. You know, just saying.
I think
and he
he's the
sure as
one
hell
that
isn't gonna do it under a Biden presidency because he would be damned to let himself not be on the bench with Biden in the office.
I'm not
Yeah, I
sure
think
his
he would
feelings are
have
really.
a
I'm
bigger
not sure
impact.
he like thinks about our feelings in these decisions, but maybe.
Well, no, he stared down freaking Biden during his hearings. And Biden was like, "Are you sure you can do it?" You know, basically paraphrasing. They had like a stare down. This is like history. This is like
Yeah,
a thing.
he's the one that you would actually want to stand in the doorway. Like he is the one that understands the magnitude of the moment and would not. He would do what he had to do to get us to the next administration. I feel like because he knows it's bigger than him.
I mean, what they did to him in his hearing, and Biden was on the um, committee, and he just just they had this stare down. It's like an infamous like scene where he said, "I will not." This is like basically paraphrasing that this was like a public lynching or something of his character. It's like, yeah, I just don't think that he would volunteer to walk off the bench while Biden is in office. I just don't see it. But I mean, what do I know?
I mean, you knew about the odds.
I swear to God, Laura Loomer is fucking in love with Donald Trump based on her tweets. She fucking is like in love with him. Like doesn't love him, in love. Like it's kind of weird her tweets.
They're weirding you out, Tryman. You're not enjoying her enthusiasm.
No, because I think if Trump asked Laura to do anything, and I mean anything, wink, wink, she would be like,
Disavow.
Sounds like you're jealous there, Tryman.
Of
Yeah,
course
like
I'm jealous.
To handcuff herself to Twitter headquarters, she would totally do it.
If Trump was all like, "Hey, I need a fourth baby," no, baby mama.
Every movement needs one of those.
Aren't they referred to as a ride and die?
That's exactly it.
Okay, so I ran the numbers. There's 173 legit people here. That's just saying.
Well, it's good to see that we're the number one space, but this is 4,300, 3,900. But this is crazy. But you know what? 100% don't care. But the only thing I can't remember who brought it up, that this is a violation of a terms of service that's going to be very unpleasant, you know?
Yeah, but
So I
it's
thought
not
it was
your fault.
I know it's not your
Like,
fault, but like they don't, you know.
like
When was the
it could
last
be
time
anybody.
Twitter support or Twitter admin gave a shit about your explanation? They'll just suspend you, and then.
Well, they have to prove it.
I mean, they
know?
can. They just have to look at the inorganic nature of the listeners. And if you're a repeat offender, I suppose over time they may have grounds to suspend your account. I don't know. Yeah.
Zag Nuance, check your DMs.
Hey, Clown, are you getting unusual followers right now?
I'm
just
checking those
asking.
out right now.
But does anyone know why Trash was so pissed off? Like, he really sounded legit pissed off in both spaces.
I
feel
picked
like
up
he's
a
got
phone
some,
call and then I got to
information
his
about
story.
like what's going on, like tracking him and shit, because it's getting pretty hot and heavy in Arizona, and he's right there in the middle of it. and he's involved in all the spaces talking about, that bullshit. So I feel like he's getting a little pressure to him.
Yeah, he did get a lot of heat for, from the Luigi Brothers spaces, being the favorites and stuff. So I don't blame him for this.
So do you think he thinks that we're fucking with them? Like that somehow we're doing this like to prove a point or something? Because I don't know. And it was weird because we're all freaking out. Like we just want to figure out what's going on. But he was like legit pissed.
He wasn't talking to us, James. He was talking to people.
Richard left. I had a question.
That some people have.
Why you?
Well, some cops are encouraged to find certain results or to move along and not investigate things.
Yeah, and if somebody dies in certain neighborhoods like there was actually a shooting last night in Hollywood Beach, Florida, and which.
Okay, this is our guys. This is our guys.
Did he say that
Missy,
women
could
can't
you?
brew it?
Dude, I bet you that was an awesome rip. Yeah, Missy, could you translate that for me? I'm excited to hear that one.
An evening alone.
There's no way you didn't understand what he just said.
I'll just try to take a piss, Mr. Renault.
Nine brew. All I heard was 9 brew. And then something about brewing it in aluminum.
Nah, you sent your fucking chef, weak ass bitches.
He said if we gave you dumbasses the recipe, you'd call it aluminum brew.
Exactly,
Oh.
Mr. No, I mean, that's how fucking chef they come.
Nailed us. Fucking got us there, didn't it?
I'll always get you back, don't worry about it.
I understood that.
Have we ever called something aluminum brew before?
Classic American, yeah.
You have no eye.
Don't we call everything aluminum brew? Don't you, bro? I still don't, yeah, anyways.
This is what happens, Misty, when these cunts think they're educated, man, a bunch of fucking useless idiots.
No, we're trying to learn. We're not educated. We're actually. I didn't know that educated had so many fucking syllables.
Oh, did you know what a syllable is, Is that a
Yes.
letter about the alphabet? Can you teach me?
All right, you lost me there. Yeah, that was like 12 syllables.
What's it?
My granddad can read the alphabet backwards. Can you?
Well, definitely, mate, aye.
Why would you want to? What load of shit? Oh.
When you're getting accused of drunk driving.
It's a trick to Jews, Misty. I try to act like Jews.
Yeah, I know. They don't like anyone. I've heard them. I've been in here a couple of times, so.
Israel?
Oh, it's that the country that rules the world, is it, aye?
Oh, yeah. Tiny little thing it is.
Exactly. Who was it invented it? Was it Britain, aye? Just like we invented Jews fucking mugs as well.
They invented Jews month?
Oh, aye, definitely, aye. The 13th month of the year.
That was pretty good, and I understood all that.
Well done.
Wouldn't it be hard, would it?
You've only got
Yeah.
a chat.
So
No, you have to
Indians aren't,
understand, man. I can
mongoloid,
speak
like, at all.
really like
They have
southern
some
shit. You'd never
admixture, but
understand
no,
me.
overwhelmingly they're
Aye, I would
they're a mix of
understand you because I'm no fucking
Cockazoid
American,
and
mate. I know about
Dravidian.
other countries and our languages
Dravidian
unlike
actually
you.
is
Well,
the
actually,
probably
a lot
native
of
Neolithic farming people who came in
hey,
from Iran
listen.
who also would have been Caucasoid. Australoid, some people have argued that it's obviously not Australoid proper, like from Australian Aborigine, but a related race. Some people have used the term Vadoid, which I don't really like. But there was an indigenous South Eurasian hunter-gathering people in India, actually quite closely related to the Andamanese and the indigenous
Oh, right.
hunter.
I need to zoom the camera. That should be possible. Wow, live. Okay, let's get a remove backwards while we're live. And now we're gonna hit this one. And we will have a back. Okay, we'll stop the stream and we'll start again.